Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name's James. You're also assuming, Suj, I'm going to get this edited and out in the morning, aren't you?
Well, we have a tight turnaround till the next deadline, so I was assuming that the audience are waiting on bated breath for our amazing insight into what was essentially a shit show FPL midweek for most people.
It wasn't the worst. I mean, look, I hit another green arrow. I mean,
True.
I always hit a green arrow, right?
I think more relatively. I mean, for me, if I'd scored 44 points in any normal game week, I'd expect a red arrow. And this week on 44 points, I'm above the average.
So did you have a green arrow or a red arrow?
Red arrow.
Oh, right, okay.
30, but we're talking 30,000 places. So it was almost basically a grey arrow. Let's be honest. I didn't really move up or down either way. And I made progress in a couple of the main mini leagues that I'm in that I really want to win. So in that sense, I made progress. Yeah.
Good.
I'm on track, James, to become the Norfolk County Council Manager of the Month for December. So, simple things.
Norfolk County Council will be absolutely thrilled and delighted to have you as their representative for December, the final month of this shit show of a year. They will be thrilled, sir.
December is the hardest month to win a Manager of the Month league. I'll tell you why, because there's more game weeks. There's so many more game weeks, so it's much more competitive.
That depends on your stance. I'd look at it and go, a lot of rubbish managers, potentially. I might have more chance, maybe. I mean, the leagues I'm in, no, it's worse for me.
And I am whipping out my wild card in a couple of game weeks' time. So yeah, obviously this has been an eventful game week for a number of reasons. It was fairly low scoring, some shock results across the board, some controversial moments in games. We're grown to expect that. The fixture announcement came out on Tuesday as well. And yet we have 24 hours to turn around a pod before the next game week. So I think we'll do what we always do. We give a quick rundown on how we did with our teams, run down the games as well. Look a little bit at the fixtures and forward planning in terms of what basic initial maybe thoughts are on the chips. But obviously we will be recording on Monday more in-depth chip related content. So there's no point in going crazy into it, but just give you an indication. If you're thinking about what to do with your transfer for this game week, do you hold it back or not, or what? We'll maybe look at that.
And next week's epic for a lot of people. I mean, for people like me and you who've still got the first wild card, it's arguably the most important week of the season.
So your game week was good. A green arrow, James, 54 points, and more points than me for the first time in a while.
54 minus 4, of course, sir. Because I took a -4 back for who the patrons now know as Darth Vader, Trent Alexander-Arnold, which I would have been 3 points better off had I not forced it in. But I obviously feel like I'm in a lot better position having already got him in, which means I can now finally get rid of Phil Foden, for example, without taking another hit. So I brought in Ollie Watkins and Trent as part of a -4. I didn't go so well. But again, I feel better. I'm better set for this week, for example. Sold Harry Kane and Nico Williams. So those two boys obviously didn't provide anything. I would have been better off not doing too much, though. that goes without saying. Martinez, 8-pointer in goal. Goal for Heung-min Son, away from home, yet again. Assist for Calvert-Lewin, Che Adams, Andrew Robertson. Goal from captain Mohamed Salah is essentially what's decided that this has been not too bad a game week. Obviously, many people have gone for De Bruyne and Fernandes for a change of one out on the captaincy here. There were things that got in the way and hindered me, like for everybody else. Ruben Diaz, you think that's looking a certain clean sheet. Not only does he kill the clean sheet, own goal as well, killed me in FPL and Sky.
Yep.
But can't be too disappointed with that. Net of 50 points for the game week. It's 8 above the average. I'm up to the dizzy heights of 2.4 million. I'm basically clawing somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 places every single week. Basically, just slowly crawling.
Well, if you keep doing that to the end of the season, you'll win. So 100,000 places a week is fine.
Well, the hope is that game week 19 is going to be more like 600,000 to 700,000 places, I think, is what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, A lot riding on that double game week and bench boost, which is upcoming. I was on a 44. I only made the one transfer. Finally, I feel like there should be some kind of ritual burning ceremony or something on Aaron Ramsdale.
Between you and FPL General.
Yeah, he has gone. I moved to Alex McCarthy. He moved to Martinez. He obviously got the better deal this week. Martinez has done really well. Alex McCarthy goes straight into Manchester City this week.
What made you pick McCarthy over Martinez?
I didn't see the price drop on Aaron Ramsdale, and he dropped to 4.7, so I couldn't buy Martinez.
Oh, that'll make sense. That'll make sense then.
Simple as that. Simple as that. I think I need to sharpen up my. It's hard because the algos this year just aren't as good as they have been in the past. It's not the fault of the people doing the algos. It's just that the price rises and changes are a little bit mental. It's almost worth asking the question: should we be looking at making transfers when we're tight on 0.1s and 0.2s? Get it done almost.
I think for that on a goalkeeper, I know the general went early. He went like Sunday night on it, so he would have obviously been following the potential of a price change from that perspective. I think for goalkeeper, I mean, you're shit unlucky if then you walk into the next game week and your goalkeeper's got COVID or something. You're bloody unlucky. Yeah. You're less likely to get a goalkeeper injury. It's not to say he can't break his finger in training, for example, but you're less likely to get a muscle injury or something like that, for example. It's one you can take more of a gamble with. There's a time and a place for it, right, in terms of early transfers. I think in that case, where you've got absolutely priced out and it's on a goalkeeper change, you probably should have. But you said you didn't notice. It's not like you ignored it.
No.
You should I was
keeping an eye on it. Having said that, Stuart Dallas first on my bench with a lovely 7-pointer. Thank you very much. And Vlad Soufal second on my bench with an 8-pointer. So it wasn't the last week. Yeah, it wasn't the week for it. I didn't see the Dallas goal coming from anywhere. And Soufal had a great game, to be honest with you, on Wednesday night. So
Stuart Dallas, just while you mentioned him, highest XG of all defenders and by a distance.
For the game week or for the
season?
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Really? I'm trusting Fantasy Football Hub stats there that they updated correctly last night. But yeah, that's the statistic I'm saying.
Yeah. Should we talk about some of these games? I know people are going to, that's what they tune in for more than anything else, is a little bit of a breakdown of what happened in some of these games. And of course, what we can take away from an FPL point of view with your teams and transfers. And
we'll try and make some of it chip relatable, but on Monday we're going to have a real breakdown at looking at people and their different scenarios of people with wildcard, people without wildcard, what may happen if people want to use the second wildcard. We're going to look at some different strategy ideas in detail on Monday.
Sure. Are the chunky chips, curly fries and French fries?
If you want to put all that shit together, great, but I'll be spending the next 72 hours watching wall-to-wall football, mate.
Nice. Wolves 2, Chelsea 1.
It's a strange game in the sense that it wasn't a great watch, but it obviously ended up having a very dramatic finish. And I think most of us, when Chelsea scored, thought, that's it, game over. Like this looked like it was turning into a game where it was going to be first goal wins. So it was surprising that Wolves then overturned it when... It's difficult to say. Chelsea weren't particularly playing well in the first instance, and they didn't play badly afterwards. It was a real weird game. It was a difficult one to pinpoint what happened afterwards. I mean, I can pinpoint on the winning goal that Chelsea got stretched, and you don't want to be stretched against Wolves going into injury time. We don't at any point, really, but you definitely don't at that stage because they're so good at counter-attacks in small numbers on 2v3s and things like that. Exceptional. And they don't often in game situations manage to work situations like that, like Neto versus Zuma, one-on-one, I'm going to take you on. You just don't see Wolves in that position 25 minutes into a game, for example. Zuma, once he realises the danger, though, he has to go and do one or two things. He either has to go and get really close to the ball and just force Neto into a position that's going to be uncomfortable and trust his own pace, because he's not slow. The second is if he thinks he's in trouble, you got to take the yellow card at that stage and finish the game, basically. even if I'm not sure, I don't think he was on a yellow, but even if he was at that stage, take the second yellow and walk if that's what it comes to, when it's going to be a case of 1 point or no points. Unbelievable finish from Neto, though. He's now on 64 FPL points for the season. I think that's the most of any midfielder under 6 million.
Yeah, he's really on my radar as well.
He's on mine as well, which is interesting because I'm looking at kind of short-term options as to replace Phil Foden. And I've got 1.9 million sitting in the bank. As another player I talked about, who's a possible replacement for me. Coming down to Neto, he feels like the best one to go to, but because it's Burnley away off the back of 2 clean sheets and then Tottenham at home the week after, doesn't feel like the player that I really want to attack when I'm attacking for 2 fixtures, essentially.
Yep.
One of the ideas behind it, one of the reasons he's still in consideration for me is, I mean, he's never going to get that 1-on-1 situation against Burnley like he got in the last minute of the game on Tuesday, unless Wolves are ahead and Burnley are chasing the game.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that he's very popular at the moment, and should he score on Monday, I might be able to nick a 0.1 on him. And having drafted a first idea of what a wild card would look like, the ideal team for me is very tight. Very, very tight. So if I can nick a little bit off someone and they're still potentially a good asset for the next 2 game weeks, I might go for that. So he's under consideration. I think for longer term thinkers, that it's not the best run. Burnley, Tottenham, United, Brighton, Everton, West Brom afterwards. Yeah, but the thing with that is they don't have a double game week in 19, obviously. But for those who are in that position where they're fucked for the chips, basically, Everton at home in 18 in the blank, West Brom at home in 19 in the double. If you're going to be carrying players through, someone like Neto, good value, good returns at his price, decent fixtures, is the sort of player you need to be considering if you're trying to think that far ahead now. So, and he's reasonable now. Look, he can return at Burnley away. Of course he can. I would favour him over Podence now, personally. I think he feels like he's got the bit between his teeth where he's the one who it feels like he really visualises the problem they've got now without Jimenez. And I don't think they're going to score many goals.
I mean, you saw his reaction at the end of the game when they won, like screaming to the skies and what have you. You could tell that it was a big win. And when you score a goal late like that to win a game, it's obviously heightened emotions, but you could really tell that he was up for it at the end of the game, and the 3 points meant a lot to him. Neto of the 2 is my preference as well. I just don't need a midfielder at that price in my squad at the moment. So we'll see what I do with that. Chelsea on the slide now. I was joking about if we beat them on Monday, we'd go above them. There's only a point between us. 22
well,
points.
It's so tight. I think this is the closest it's ever been between sort of 1st and 10th at this stage of a season in Premier League history, actually. It's still really tight.
Yeah. Anybody
who's in that kind of almost sort of down to 11th, 12th, if you win 2-3 games in a row, you're going to be in the top 4, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
So it's still really, really close. The player that I'm potentially considering as a Foden replacement, I mentioned there's one I can go up to. I have enough to go from Phil Foden to Christian Pulisic.
Yeah.
Which he's the only one, if I go up to sort of high 7s or 8, because I've got 1.9 sitting in the bank, who I'm thinking he's the only one that interests me. Now, with him, it's a massive problem in terms of injury doubts, etc. There's a concern about the rotation, but if Ziyech is going to be ruled out for another week or so, I feel like he's going to keep playing. I thought he tired a bit, but he looked really lively. He didn't look like someone who'd hardly played for 6 weeks or so. Don't particularly like the fixtures, though, for me in the next 2. West Ham at home, he's not someone I'm visualising getting a lot of space in. And to be honest, neither particularly Arsenal away, but both are games where if Chelsea can manufacture good counter-attacking situations, he might do quite well. And that might be the punt I end up taking. It would be a real punt. He'd sit in the team for 2 weeks, and that would possibly be it. The benefit of him as well is for myself and my own strategy. Should he do well, I'm probably likely to look at price rises again, and he's sitting there ready for me for that potential wild card, as Chelsea also have a double in game week 19, which is interesting. Chelsea have Fulham away and Leicester away. In an odd way, away games might be better for him with slightly more chance of counter-attacking at the moment. So he's under consideration. Ben Chilwell stood out. 19 crosses in the game.
Yep.
And only 3 successful, but obviously did assist a goal for Olivier Giroud. Still prefer Reece James personally because it's like nearly £1 million cheaper.
Yeah.
But a bad week for Chelsea, losing 2 games narrowly.
Really bad. Yeah. City 1, West Brom 1. Let's talk about the game first, and then we'll talk about Slaven and Big Sam very briefly as well. We talked on this show repeatedly about City's issue with tempo, and I felt the same again here. I just felt it was too slow from City in the build-up play. They just didn't seem to have the intensity they needed to really open up a lead. And if you don't score the goals, then the opposition are always going to be in it. Having said that, I think West Brom's work rate was really good. They obviously had to work their socks off.
West Brom died for their life on that pitch.
It was fantastic to see, which is why I was so surprised, obviously, with what happened afterwards in terms of Slav leaving. That was clearly a decision that had been made way before that.
Oh, match. 100%. Yeah.
So it makes it look even worse when you do that, when you pull out a result like that, drawing away at City, and then you lose your manager. It's crazy. Kevin De Bruyne still sits in this same space, same problem that we had last week, where the rest of his teammates are just not doing him justice.
Yeah, look, he's had an XA of over 1. I mean, the crosses, the first cross for Gundogan is a great cross. And then the cross for Sterling, it was like, fucking hell, I'll put that one on a plate for you. Let me put in a cross that's even 10 times better that you really can't miss. Look, admitted both players have headed it down and Johnson's in the right place. I think it's difficult at that because when it comes from that sort of angle, you can't look at the goal. So you're concentrating on hitting the target. I'll put it in the far post and stuff. When it's coming that far and almost behind your body, you can't look at the goal unless you're already standing in the place. And both players were running onto it. So I think, look, they got on the end of it. They headed it down. Both have hit Johnston. De Bruyne owners can certainly feel very unlucky though, but doesn't particularly like scoring games at the moment. It's worth saying his 2 Premier League goals have both been penalties. That's a little alarming. It's alarming from kind of to repeat what I said on Monday's podcast, that in theory, because he's normally playing higher up the pitch, that he should be getting more shots away, etc. You would expect him to be scoring more goals. I mean, if he goes to shoot from 25 yards, you shit yourself, basically, didn't you? Because he strikes the ball so well, whether he's bending it or just powering it. And even the 2 created chances here in this game, obviously at that point, West Brom are knackered and they're very much backs to the wall. But the 2 crosses are from him picking the ball up in very deep positions. I mean, the second one's basically from a right back position. He's so deep. And I just think he should go and play deeper. I really do. I think City would be so much better off for it at the moment. But tempo, I don't really want to repeat everything I said after the United game. It's just not there. Yeah. It's just not there for them at the moment. And this weekend, they play a team who Southampton will believe they can beat them. If they lose at Southampton, for me, title race is nearly done. Yeah. Because I still believe they're the only team that can catch Liverpool realistically.
City are nice and awkward for us, James, because they don't have a double game week in 19, but their fixtures are Brighton at home, Crystal Palace at home, West Brom away, Sheffield United at home, then Burnley away is a run of 5. It's one of those where you can't ignore the block of 5 together, despite them not having that double game week. So that could be one of the clubs clearly where if you want a single game week player,
you don't have to. So in our position, Suj, I presume you're on the same strategy idea with me, which is a 19 bench boost and a free hit 18. I can obviously have 3 in a hit and make a decision at the time in terms of who do I think is going to play. And then from 19, I can move straight to him in 20.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're sitting there, I'm likely to be sitting there with Salah, for example, for the double. He's then got Tottenham away and City have got West Brom away. They're actually the reverse fixtures of this week just gone. So Salah to De Bruyne, for example, in game week 20 would be quite straightforward. So I don't think that I will miss out on it, ironically. They got to get their act together, though. It's tempo is a real issue and problem for them. It's just not right. They're just not scoring enough goals. They've got 18 goals after 12 games this season. After 12 games last season, they had 35.
Yeah, it's mad.
It's not right.
With West Brom, had I known Big Sam was coming in as manager before the game week, thank you for not leaking that information, whoever. I probably would have bought Sam Johnston over Alex McCarthy.
To be honest, it looks better for Johnston now. That's gone. Don't forget, he's got Liverpool away next week as well, mate. So I don't think you would have.
I'm not in the same camp as most people where they think that Big Sam coming in is just going to be basically boring football and we'll stay up, but it'll be boring and it's just not a long-term appointment and it's shit. It's like, you know what, you're going to get relegated. Although having said that, the chances of West Brom staying up were slim at the start of the season. So I don't know what they expected, to be honest with you.
The reality is...
I think it's a decent managerial appointment. Would I have sacked Slaven? No. But is getting Big Sam in a bad decision also? No, in my opinion.
The reality is, Bilic only just got West Brom over the line in getting promotion last year. Them and Leeds were well clear, and West Brom crawled over the line. We went through a lot of their numbers in the summer about alarm bells because they didn't finish the championship season well. So I think it was always the case that if they were in trouble, which we all anticipated they would be, let's be honest, that each job at any time was going to go under threat. There were massive alarm bells when they drew at Brighton and they sold Higazi behind his back. And I think at that point, I mean, Bilic basically said he didn't know anything about him being sold. At that point, relationship's broken. And it's almost, unless he has unbelievable results, it's just a matter of time of when rather than if.
Yeah.
The timing felt off. I imagine probably the Crystal Palace result is probably what set it off, where they went, okay, we'll change. And they've probably been in talks with Allardyce for over a week. The reality is, as much as most people think that he wasn't backed in the summer, etc., good manager, good coach, and we think that it was probably a bit undeserving that he got sacked, 90% of us think right now they've got a far better chance of staying up.
That is true. The thing that Slav was only there for 18 months, right, in charge of West Brom. So it literally, if he'd spent 2 or 3 seasons building a squad up and then getting promotion, I think it'd be very different. The success came so fast that, and I say success, it's a little bit in inverted commas because we did talk about the last 6 months of last season, but he came in and they got promoted straight away. Had he had a couple of seasons in the Championship before they got promoted, I think there would be a little bit of a different attitude, just because you end up becoming part of the fabric a little bit more than if you're just in and straight up, potentially, like a Sean Dyche has, for example. It'd be interesting to see. I think, if anything, we'll be coming back to look at West Brom assets come the new year once we know what Big Sam's doing with the squad, because you have to accept that all of their players are cheap. And he will find a formula that works. And I reckon there will be 1 or 2 from there that will stick their hand up as, actually, you know what, these might be decent bench fillers or cheap players that we can start moving forward.
Well, interestingly, I mean, from that perspective, at the moment, I've got Johnston, who's my backup keeper at the moment, essentially. My intention at the moment would be to carry him through on wildcard. They've got Wolves and West Ham away in game week 19, which on paper doesn't look the best. But suddenly, just because it's Sam Allardyce, we're thinking, there could be some defensive returns. Yeah. And they've got Fulham and Sheffield United are 2 of the 3 fixtures after the double game week as well. So I think you're right. And I think Johnston will prove quite popular with people because I don't think there's enough trust in the others defensively.
I mean, he still picks up save points regularly.
Ajayi, I know Gemarino really likes Ajayi. I don't think his price is ideal. I would personally probably prefer to go for Furlong. There's a little bit more. And actually with Big Sam, they'll use him as a bit more of a target, as an outball as well when they're in trouble defensively, I should imagine. I think what West Brom fans are particularly unhappy about, just to close on them, is they've been through this before. And it's a circle of the football club. They had Tony Pulis come in and do the same job like 5-6 years ago. And eventually, it's not progression. There is a limit to what, honestly, a Pulis or an Allardyce is going to achieve. And at some point, you're going to look for somebody else. And the chances are, when they look to replace Sam Allardyce, they will look to appoint a very different manager. Probably, let's be honest, a continental manager who plays football very differently to a Sam Allardyce or a Tony Pulis. And the problem is, if you don't transition from that properly, it's even worse. and you just go. West Brom have been a yo-yo club for 15 odd years, and I don't see that changing. But he does give them a better chance of staying up, definitely.
We had a full roster on Wednesday of 6 fixtures, busy day of football. The 3 early kickoffs, Arsenal won, Southampton won. Aubameyang scored, so doff my cap, James. I still just think that Arsenal are not very good.
Listen, 10 points from 2 home games is not good enough if we want to put them together.
No. I watched the second 2/3 of this game once I got in. I was really frustrated with Southampton, I have to say. Like, they were good. They kept the ball well. They applied all the pressure. There were periods where Arsenal had, like the start of the second half, Arsenal were better. But on the whole, over the whole game, Southampton were much the better side. They kept the ball better, created chances. But they didn't have that killer instinct. I think like they could have really gone for the throat a little bit more. I felt like they played within themselves a little bit, Southampton. Like, had they really gone for it, I think they could have put this game to bed. And I think Southampton will look back at it and think, you know what, that was an opportunity missed for us, where had we just increased the intensity a little bit, we could have taken the points from Arsenal.
Difficult one. So I spoke on Monday's pod about the idea of Arsenal playing the game like an away game. And they basically did. They never went and pressed the ball or anything. They let Southampton have it. When Arsenal did engage with Southampton was actually when it became problematic for Arsenal. So, and obviously what happened after the red card, where you go, okay, yeah, lots of domination. I mean, you had the centre-halves basically playing, Vestergaard and Bednarek playing 40 yards from Arsenal's goal. So you've got 22 players and you've cut
one half.
Yeah. So it becomes difficult at that stage. And let's be honest, they don't have a creative, the positioning that your likes of Armstrong and Walcott pick up are really dangerous when there's space on a pitch. They're not the type of players who's going to turn on a sixpence in a 10 position and thread the ball when there's no space, for example. So that's why the game became a bit difficult for Southampton. Plus, you put the pressure on. If you can work Ward-Prowse into a nice, even wide position and he can sling it in, you still need Adams or Ings, for example, to get on the end of it, and they're not the biggest. Southampton are doing really, really well. I would not be surprised if they beat Manchester City at the weekend. I think they've got the highest points total since they lost to Tottenham in game week 2. So they're doing great. If they can win on Saturday against City, which I think they might, then they can push for Europe. You can tell there's so much confidence in that team at the moment with the way that they play on the ball. And interestingly, I think they lost. They didn't win this game because of the Manchester City game. Hear me out. Saka, who was Arsenal's best player, in my opinion, not for the first time this season, by the way.
Yeah, agreed.
He obviously beats a couple of people, and the final person that he beats is Romeo. Romeo's on 4 yellow cards. And in my opinion, he pulled out the tackle because he knew he was going to get suspended for the Man City game. And he thought it was worth the risk to let him go. I think any other game, Romeo fouls him, pulls a shirt, takes the yellow card. Aubameyang finishes it well. Great work from Saka. But it's interesting. I own Romeo in Sky, so I've been kind of following some of his movements closely for this. And he let him go. He wouldn't normally let him go in that position. If that happens against City at the weekend, Romeo will get booked. And then he'll miss the Fulham game.
Romeo, he's better on the ball than he's given credit for, in my opinion. I mean, he nearly created.
I think he's great. I think
he created a couple of good opportunities.
He's been very close to best centre midfielder in the league this year, in my opinion. I think he's brilliant. He kind of stagnated his career a little bit after he left Chelsea, which feels years ago now. But I think there's a few of the big six, etc., going to be looking at him going, you could do a job for me. I would. If he came to Tottenham for a couple of years short term, I'd be well happy with that, honestly. I think he's a terrific player. Although quite why anyone would want to leave Southampton at the moment, I don't know. But then again, transfer window's coming up and there's certain teams who are in trouble. And this is just a point to be careful of with teams like Southampton, who obviously have a game week 19 double. What happens if Liverpool come in and say there's 40 million for Vestergaard?
Yeah, understood. The thing with Southampton that I think sums up their season and where they're at is that so many of their players that I'd want in FPL. McCarthy's okay. Walker Peters is okay. Vestergaard's okay. Romeo is cheap. He's 4.5 million. So as a bench filler, he's okay. Armstrong's okay. Ings is okay. Adams is okay. And whereas you look at the other side of the coin there with Arsenal, no one. There's no one that I really am desperate to go and buy. And that's the story of where we are with these two teams at the moment, really.
Great run of fixtures coming up, though. And for those without the chips, obviously they're the sort of team you think Brighton, West Brom, then Palace 18, Newcastle 19. You think you're going to want some of it. Those who are working through are quite highly likely, I think, to end up with an Aubameyang. Yeah. It's just whether you want to pay that money versus other premiums for that period, or do you want to go cheaper, trust someone like Saka, or get someone defensively like Gabriel or Tierney. Just before we move on to the next game, a couple of things. One, Vestergaard, I can see that transfer, by the way. It's exactly
Southampton, Liverpool's feeder club, aren't they? They have been for the last 5 years.
It's exactly what Liverpool need to cover Van Dijk. Liverpool are going to buy a centre-half in January, surely. They must be trying to plan who that's going to be now, you would think. He had a message from our Arsenal correspondent, Adam Pritchard, this morning at 352 on Twitter. And he said, not sure if you've recorded yet. This was at 8:24 a.m. And I said, no, don't worry. You've got 6 minutes, mate. He said, not sure if you've recorded yet, but David Luiz and Willian are apparently asking Edu to sack Arteta. Says that's coming from a few well-connected people in the club. It is not well there. And as much as I think that Arsenal would be better off sticking with Arteta, if that is the situation, you've got two choices, as I mentioned on last Tuesday's Arsenal in Crisis podcast, which is you either get these people out of the squad, like you've done with Ozil, and just get rid, just don't even come to training, whatever, or you have to change the manager. I don't think changing the manager with that group of players is the right answer for Arsenal, because I can't see how it fixes. We've got too many bad players.
Yeah. Leeds 5, Newcastle 2. This is one of those typical days that we expected from Leeds, really.
Yes and no. I mean, there were things that we did expect, like Newcastle scoring from a set piece, for example, was almost an inevitability. 14 shots in the first half alone from Leeds, more than any team in the first half of a Premier League game this season. They absolutely battered Newcastle, basically. Yeah. But it got left very late. And the interesting thing is, obviously, Newcastle...
Good teams do that. You wear a team down, and in the last 15 or 20 minutes, they're tired. You create these openings. A lot of people used to talk about United scoring late and Liverpool scoring late and what have you. It's because they've been spending 75, 80 minutes softening you up for the knockout blow. So I just think that's part of a good strategy to wear a team down.
My favourite heat map from the game week is that of Jeff Hendrick, who was playing right midfield for Newcastle. His heat map is basically a line of sort of from the goal line to the edge of the area and just inside. You could draw a line over the penalty area. That's basically all he's doing. It's just defending crosses. The whole fucking game. That's all he's doing. Just end up so deep. Good from Leeds. They're capable of this in games, honestly. I think Rafinha owners can count themselves extremely unlucky. He had 7 shots, 5 in the box, and obviously a yellow card as well, and no attacking returns amongst Leeds' 5.
Is Andy Martin giving out refunds on Rafinha or not yet?
I don't think he would actually. I've not spoke to Andy about it, but I think he'd potentially still be the recommendation.
Even owning Bamford, it just felt like 5 goals, and I've just got 1 goal out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can be disappointed with that, absolutely. I prefer Harrison, but I think, I mean, I've not bought either. I let a lot of noise convince me that Rafinha was the better option. I mean, Harrison's assist for Rodrigo's goal and the goal he scores himself, that's as good as you're going to get this year. I loved the goal that he got. Brilliant. I think he's the preference one, Harrison. It's highly likely, again, they've got a double in 18. Brighton at home, Southampton at home. 2 teams where the game's likely to be quite open. They're really interesting.
Yeah. Leicester 0, Everton 2. Should we talk about them? I thought Leicester were going to win. What happened here?
What did I say?
Now, Everton are playing Arsenal at home, And I heard on the radio this morning that Everton are favourites against Arsenal. So
that would be right. Yeah.
I
mean, I have to say, it's quite. I haven't had a bet for a very, very long time. Just before kickoff, I did have a look at the odds for Arsenal Southampton, and I couldn't believe how big Southampton's price was.
Wow.
I was quite tempted to get a bit of money actually. I'd have lost it, obviously, which is part of the point.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me that Everton will be favourites. It's 3 clean sheets now for the season against Tottenham, Chelsea, Leicester, which tells a little bit of a story now. This can't just be a fluke. And I spoke about in the week the idea that, oddly enough, the lack of having available Luca Dean, Seamus Coleman would force Everton into this position where they're going to make the game very difficult for Leicester to try and break them down. And that's the way the game went. Fine margins in the game. Schmeichel should probably save Richarlison's shot. Jamie Vardy misses a sitter of a free header at the other end, which he should score. So it could have easily been 1-0 to Leicester. But I think Everton deserved to win. What really impressed me about this was the way they recovered from Allen's injury. So Allen picked up a hamstring injury. I presume that's going to rule him out for, it's going to be about 6-7 game weeks probably, isn't it?
Yeah.
At least, depending on how serious it is. Obviously, brought Andre Gomez into the team, and Doucouré really took on the responsibility of what was happening in the game. And he's going to have to play a different role in these forthcoming games without Allen. So he's going to have to put more of a defensive onus into what he's doing. He's capable of it. He's a good player. He may switch off if the tempo of a game is not high. If the tempo's high and they're holding on to a lead, he'll get into position and do all the bits really well. Not bad from Everton. 2 big wins this week, and they're very capable of beating Arsenal. It's Richarlison's first goal from open play this season. His only other one was the penalty against Crystal Palace in game week 3. I think they shaded it, and I think by the end they deserved to win, just about Everton. For Leicester, it's a repetitive theme of home performances.
On Everton, obviously the game week 18 fixture they've got is a tough away game at Wolves, and then they don't have a double in 19 necessarily, and then they have a home fixture, same again, Leicester. So I don't know if Everton are particularly on the radar from an 18, 19 blanks and doubles kind of point of view.
They won't appeal, but if you've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin and you've had since 7 million or something, it's very reasonable just to carry him through. You haven't got to. You can sell him. By all means, you can sell him. But it's also reasonable to hold through. In terms of buying Everton players at the moment, I don't see strategies where that's of interest, particularly to anybody, really. No. But look, should they win again at the weekend and keep another clean sheet, that's going to raise some alarm bells, isn't it? Because what have they got afterwards, Everton? Sheffield United away off the back of 3 clean sheets. And you think, if I need a 1-week punt even for people like me and you, game week 15, or I might get an Everton player, for example.
Yeah.
For someone who still has Calvert-Lewin like me, I can't see that being of interest particularly. No. Plus, they'll let you down when you don't expect it, I think, Everton. Leicester's 4 home defeats for the season. They have lost as many as home as they lost all of last season. Manchester United is their next home game in game week 15, and United can equal the all-time consecutive away Premier League victories, believe it or not, Suj. Get to 11 victories, which would be the most in succession. And United have obviously already won at Leicester in the restart period as well. Difficult game at Tottenham this week.
They've got a difficult run at the moment, Leicester.
I don't think they're of interest to too many at the moment. But they're another one as well. Their double looks quite difficult, Southampton and Chelsea.
But they're both at home.
And they might be better fixtures for Jamie Vardy, you know.
Fulham 0, Brighton 0. Basically, this fixture, I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking that everybody in the bottom 4 or 5 picked up points apart from Sheffield United, making that result yesterday for them even worse. But I think both sides will take a point and live to fight another day.
Let's not bullshit this, mate. You were watching West Ham and I was watching Tottenham.
Yeah.
So I've only seen bits of this game. My understanding is the first half was quite cagey. In the second half, either side could have won it. Lewis Dunk had 5 efforts of on goal for those who like that sort of thing. And obviously they play Sheffield United at home this week. So if you fancy looking for a random 15-pointer this week, Lewis Dunk might be your man. But it sounded like it was a fair result overall. I think Fulham were probably a little bit fatigued from obviously the effort they put into the Liverpool game. And for Brighton, it was important to obviously have a reaction from the performance at Leicester, which wasn't great. And I think it probably for both teams became a little bit more about not losing than winning. Obviously, Brighton changed keeper. Sanchez came in for Matt Ryan, and Potter appears to have confirmed after the game that Sanchez will stay in goal.
Right.
Brighton might be of interest this weekend because it's Sheffield United. And to be honest, Fulham as well, for those looking short-term options. Newcastle away this week. I wouldn't rule out buying Lookman or Cavallero personally if I like that as the 1 week punt. I'm very well set for game week 15, so it might even be that I want a player just for game week 14.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't rule them out. And with that in mind, I also wouldn't rule out Pascal Gross. I know he didn't start at Fulham, but obviously had a couple of pen returns before the game. If it's just a 1 week punt, I might look at a Brighton player. The scary thing with Brighton is good luck guessing the team.
No. And with the blanks and doubles, obviously Fulham have a double. I'm just pulling it up in front of me now.
Chelsea United.
Chelsea
Fulham's
and United
double.
is horrible, right? The home fixtures, but Chelsea United, whereas Brighton just have the away game at
But
Leeds.
again, it's another one. If you look at someone like Lookman, for example, who's obviously very direct in his running, he might get away.
Yeah, for the price, if you get
games.
one and a half returns out of him, you'd take it.
If Ademola Lookman could get you 7 points from them 2 games at that price, you'd take that. And they've got Brighton and West Brom are the 2 games afterwards. So it's not the
worst.
It's not actually. Brighton's is worse, I think, because they've got City away and Leeds away. And I think really you're probably looking at people like Lamptey, for example. I don't fancy that. City away and Leeds away. I can't see a clean sheet from them 2 games.
No. Liverpool 2, Spurs 1. I didn't watch it, obviously. I was watching on the other side at the thriller at the London Stadium. My favourite clip on Twitter of the entire weekend has to be
Tim Sherwood.
Has to be Tim Sherwood sitting there saying, not worried about these corners and crosses. And Bobby Firmino sticking it in the back of the net.
I'm glad that he wasn't worried about it because I know the delivery from Robertson, Trent particularly is obviously outstanding from corners. They're the best sort of out-swinging corner takers in the league, arguably, to do it with such pace as well.
What do you think about these lucky Salah owners? Fluky, lucky, jammy, what other words can I use? Salah owners with this deflected own goal.
I don't think Mohamed Salah's owners have ever been anything more than lucky. The one the one beauty of me, obviously,
I own him in Sky, James, actually. So
I captained him in that as well, by the way. The one thing about this week is obviously Salah. People who listen for a while will know is when I own him, he frustrates me.
Yeah,
he didn't frustrate me on Wednesday because it wasn't hurting me.
No.
Look, he obviously scored the goal. It was more of a threat in the first half than the second half. He's capable anytime, any game, right? Because he's such a greedy little fucking shit. And he's obviously a very reasonable captain for me in the next 2 game weeks. Palace away this week. I mean, you make a case that United asset against Leeds is possibly the best one to go to. But a week after a free midweek for Liverpool as well, it really does look the best shout at home to West Brom. And it's a 4-day break for them before they play Newcastle as well. So it shouldn't be any concerns. Mo Salah will be mass captained in game week 15, I should imagine.
He's the only way I can get to him is getting rid of Kevin De Bruyne. Right now, if you gave me the choice of De Bruyne or Salah in my squad, I'd take Salah.
I got asked that on my stream yesterday, who would you have for the next 10 game weeks? And I said Salah with no hesitation, actually. And yes, City have a great run, but from my strategy, I'm obviously thinking about double, which Liverpool obviously have. It's 2 home games. How good is his record in home games, right? Yeah. It's United and Burnley at home, which ain't the best, actually. And I wouldn't be keen to use a triple captainship on him. I think better opportunities would come up, for example, for those who are looking, perhaps haven't got the bench boost, looking to cover something else. But I think he'll be my captain in game week 19. He'd have to, wouldn't you? Liverpool 2 home games, Mo Salah. Yeah. Fairly straightforward, actually. The game itself...
Sure you don't want to go with Mane?
Not this time, mate.
Okay.
I love him. I love him as a player, but he hasn't scored something in game week 6 or something, Sadio Mane. It's a no contest at the moment from that perspective, Salah versus Mane, no contest.
Let me put something else out there, though. I reckon both of us, at some point before the end of the season, will probably own Mane. He will go on a run. I agree
with that, 100%.
He will go on a run, and I'll want him. And I want him to go on a run as well. I want to own Sadio Mane at some point when he goes on a run, but not at the moment.
I wouldn't rule out having both on the wild card, but I'm going to have Trent and Robbo, and I can't help myself. The game was interesting. I mean, a lot of people said it was a great watch. For me, as a fan, obviously engaged in it, it's difficult to understand. Tottenham, in my opinion, were bad in the first half, very good in the second half. And we got to a stage of the game where genuinely I was watching the game, I was thinking, we really can win this. In terms of, a lot of people reacted to Mourinho's comment after the game saying that the best team lost. I don't agree with that comment. And with Mourinho, it's all about propaganda stuff anyway. Exactly.
That kind of stuff, yeah.
But to give you an interesting stat analogy, just very briefly on the game, and this shows you where you kind of sit in terms of your interpretation. So Liverpool had 11 shots on target. Hugo Lloris made 9 saves. Tottenham only had 2 shots on target. Liverpool didn't have a big chance in the game. Tottenham had 4. So in terms of your analysis of where you're at there, that depends where you sit. Do you go, Liverpool have had 77% possession or whatever it is, dominated, had loads more shots? Or do you look at it and go, well, the goals come from a heavily deflected shot, and every save that Lloris made, bar one which he flicked over from Mane, was actually quite straightforward. And Tottenham have had 4 big chances at Anfield. No one had more big chances than Tottenham in the game week. So that's why it felt disappointing. And it felt like the first time this season that Tottenham had back-to-back chances in the game and weren't ruthless and clinical. And it was the worst game to probably not be ruthless and clinical. Bergwijn hits the post. It's unlucky. He had one earlier which he tried to toe end it and he should just smash it near post like Son did. And the Harry Kane header, you can't believe he's missed. Yeah. All he has to do is edit down. If you tried to edit down over the bar like that, you couldn't do it if you tried. So we was at a stage where I thought we were going to win the game. No complaints with the result in the end. Liverpool, as I said pre-game, I think they're going to end up winning this. I know the table's tight. I think they're going to end up winning this comfortably. Yeah, they can, in the next few game weeks, pull away. They really can. Chelsea got a tough run of fixtures. Tottenham has still got a couple of tough fixtures to come. And City's next 4, which includes Southampton, Everton and Chelsea all away before the good run, is not great, actually, those 3 away games. And to be honest, I think if City get less than 7 points in those 3 away games, they'll find themselves too far behind Liverpool.
From an FPL point of view, any assets that weren't on your radar that currently are, or are we still looking at the same familiar figures in Kane and Son and maybe Eric Dier or Reguilon?
I think people would have seen the Reguilon danger. Obviously not playing this game. It didn't come as a huge surprise. There is interest in Eric Dier at the moment, which I can understand. I can definitely understand it for those who are looking to work through 18-19, because if you look at Tottenham's 4 fixtures from game week 16, Fulham at home, Kane's going to be quite heavily captained, I think, or Son. Leeds at home 17, they're both going to have interest for captaincy as well. And then it's Villa away 18 in the blank, Sheffield United away 19 in the blank as well. Part my thinking at the moment is probably to carry Son through on the wild card and sell him in 19. That's probably my thinking at the moment. But do I even want to sell Heung-min Son
United
away to Sheffield? But that's what I'm saying. So if I get there and I'm in a bad position and he ends up staying, exactly, that would be part of the thinking. So I don't think, because Tottenham haven't got a double, doesn't mean you should ignore the big, powerful players over the Christmas period. The Fulham fixture is going to cause a little bit of concern in terms of potential rotation, particularly if Tottenham win at Stoke in the League Cup, because then the fixtures, Tottenham might play every 3 days for 4. And that might be a little bit scary, where Fulham might become the sacrifice where Mourinho goes, I'll leave them on the bench, I'll use them if I need them. So that's a little bit scary. And you're not going to know how you stand with that till at least a week from now, basically. Or at least sort of 5 days after the Stoke game, to even give you an indication. And even with that, it might be what's condition after Wolves. I mean, for example, if we go to Wolves, not that I expect us to go there and win comfortably, but if you can drag Son off the pitch with 20 minutes to go, that would help, wouldn't it, for example? So you're not even going to know probably till very late in the Wolves game, which is the last game of game week 15. And I think is around about 15 hours before the deadline for game week 16. So it's dirty. It's a little bit tight. Don't worry, we'll have a podcast out at midnight that night in case you're worrying, and that's factual. It's still Kane's Son, generally speaking, though. For Liverpool, just a shout out for Curtis Jones. Absolutely outstanding. It was man of the match in my opinion, I'd say. 4.4 million does potentially block Liverpool assets. That's the one thing I know Dan FPL Loco Lord would be saying. He potentially blocks assets. But if you've got no interest in Trent and Robertson, for example, you think, I'm not spending that, it's too much money, then he doesn't, does he?
No.
You can go Salah and Jones and Mane in theory, if that's what you want to do. They've got great immediate fixtures. He is going to shoot up in price because he's playing every week at 4.4 million. Yep. One thing I'd say is, as caution, Keita was on the bench. Oxlade-Chamberlain was on the bench. They've still got Thiago to come back. And if they do go and buy someone like Vestergaard, and sorry, Saints fans, I'm starting the rumour here myself, then Fabinho can go back in midfield as well. And then suddenly it's stacked. Yep. Imagine if they get to that position with all them players then available in midfield and they're 6-7 points league in front. They ain't blowing shit, are they?
Nope.
Too good.
West Ham Palace 1.
They do give away shitloads of big chances, though.
No.
I think it's 15 big chances they've given up in the last 5 game weeks.
Yeah, when you've got Alisson in goal, though, sometimes you just feel like he's such a good goalkeeper. He'll keep half of them out.
It helps. Right. I think there is a little bit of that. In terms of Liverpool want games to be big anyway because it's better for their attacking players as well. And yes, they do trust the goalkeepers to get them out of trouble.
Yeah. West Ham 1, Palace 1.
I'll leave this to you, mate, because I ain't seen nothing really other than Benteke's arm waving the air a couple of times.
Have you, and trust me, you saw Haller's goal.
Well, as I said to you yesterday, Gator should have saved it, mate.
Yeah, of course he should. As much as Alisson should save Heung-min Son's effort, you didn't miss much, is all I can say.
So I heard. That's why I didn't bother watching it.
It wasn't like, when you watch it and your team's involved, then you kind of get a little bit more engrossed into the tactics of how the team is set up and what have you. If you're watching as a neutral, you're just like, this is a bit garbage. But I thought Palace were really good in the first half. I almost feel like I underestimated them in the sense that I've always talked about with Palace. I know what I'm going to get all the time. I don't ever have any issue with it. I know how they're going to set up. I know what threat they're going to pose. I know how difficult they are going to be to break down. And that's exactly what happened. They were really good in the first half. And I felt physically that we'd come up against the big, strong side. We couldn't break their press. They were obviously applying pressure on the left-hand side. Benteke had a very good game. Whereas against Leeds, for example, when we broke out and we broke the press, we could get in and try and do something, create. We just couldn't get on the ball in the first half at all. I mean, when did Palace have like 70% possession? Incredible the way they were able to keep the ball in the first half.
Well, normally when they do, it's normally bad for Palace when they have a lot of possession, actually.
Yeah. The second half got a bit better. We did get ourselves on the ball a lot more and did create a few more chances and what have you. Obviously, the sending off of Benteke is going to have a big impact in the game as well. And the wonder goal from Haller. I think the draw was probably just about the fair result, just about, because we were better in the second half. And when they went down to 10 men, we did apply a lot of pressure. But take nothing away, I think Palace were decent here. They really were. It didn't change my point of view on anything from an FPL point of view. And I'm glad Benteke got sent off because that's put paid to the bandwagon that was about to start with everybody trying to buy Christian Benteke.
Great news for Liverpool, by the way.
He looked good. I know on your stream you said that you didn't think it was a red card. Andy Carroll has the same problem, right? Jumping with his elbows. He's continuously getting called out on fouls for it.
The difference, if I can jump in.
He didn't look at Souček. I know he didn't look at Souček in any way, shape or form. It's almost now like who did Dier get sent off for stamping on his ankle by mistake when he was running earlier in the season? Was that against Palace? I can't remember who he trod on. He trod on somebody anyway.
I can't remember that.
It wasn't intentional though, right? He was running.
Southampton, Cole Walker-Peters.
It wasn't intentional, but it was still a foul. I feel like, again, if you're going to have your elbow out, whether it's intentional, if you hit a guy in the face, you hit a guy in the face. So where does intent come into it?
To highlight it, I mean, really weird to bring the Luca Dean one in, but...
No, I'm just talking about intent, because that, again, looked really bad, and that was definitely a red card. but he didn't mean it. In the same sense here, Benteke didn't mean to elbow Souček in the face.
No.
He still did.
The one reason he never got away with that, Luca Dean, was because his foot dragged on Cole Walker-Peters for so long.
Yeah.
And Andy Carroll comparison, I know what you're saying. The difference between Carroll and Benteke is Carroll goes in with such force and a running jump that it becomes very dangerous.
Okay.
Benteke's almost both from standing jumps. And when you're at a standing jump, you cannot just try... Go and practice outside. Your missus will think you're weird, right? But just jump in the air as high as you can.
Nothing new.
And watch in the mirror what your arms do. It's not possible.
No, it is hard. Don't get me wrong.
I think I can understand if that had been one where the referee, say the second one was a booking, and the ref goes, look, I'm sorry, that's happened twice now. I'm going to have to book you. Or if he looks at it and goes, look, I don't really want to send you off for that. This is where common sense should come in.
Yeah.
I booked you once. I don't really want to send you off for that. This is a final warning, though. If that happens again, you'll walk. But we just go, okay, there's 2 incidences where he's gone up for a header and his arm, which is straight, ends up catching the player in the face. Shit can happen. He doesn't deserve to get sent off for that, man.
No, I think it's very, very harsh, but you made contact. What can you do?
Listen, this is football, and we're already on the verge of no more contact.
It's
have
frustrating.
To look. Best stat from the weekend, or the game week just gone. No penalties.
Yeah,
not a single penalty. Nobody wants to make a tackle in the penalty box anymore. This is not the football that we want.
No. Haller's goal though, tasty.
Not bad.
I'm just hoping that he keeps getting and building his confidence, and we finally. I mean, but he did a bloody post-match press conference. Fine, like just listening to the guy speak, I was like, right. So there's words that come out your mouth. It's not just moody stare. I think he really. I mean, we joke about he needs a shag in the Martial style. I think he really does need a lot of love and start to get better, and he will hopefully kick on from here. Soufal's getting a lot of the plaudits, and he had a great game. Defensively, he was good, bombed down. 4.6 million, still a very, very good price, in my opinion, if you wanted to do it. I wouldn't send anyone off that.
Great double for West Ham in 19 as well.
Yes, yeah. You've talked about tripling up. I'm sure I'll be
possibly, yeah.
I mean, I'm already on Souček and Soufal, so yeah.
At least 2. Antonio could come into the conversation. To be honest, even if Antonio was ruled out for 6 weeks or so, would actually bring Haller into the conversation, honestly.
Yeah,
Jared
agreed.
Bowen.
Yeah.
What was Ben Rama's performance like?
Non-existent.
Oh, right, okay.
This is the type of game where if you're up against a big physical side, a skillful player like him can just get lost in amongst it, where he just kept losing the ball. He didn't get enough time to make any driving runs, was snuffed out. Like the 2 performances versus Leeds in this game, I'm not reading too much into this game, but it was the type of game where a skillful player like him can just get lost, and he did get lost, I'm afraid. He didn't have a good game. No.
They're very much of interest. I mean, look, Southampton and Everton are the 2 away games for those who looked to wildcard in 16 before the double. They're not the worst. And obviously, if you go for guys like Soufal or Diop, is another one I'm going to ask you about. We'll come back onto in a sec. These guys they can sit on your bench, right? If you don't want to play them in those 2 away games, and you play them in the double with the bench boost, that's what it's for. Why did Diop play? Just briefly.
Balbuena had a knock.
Okay.
Royce confirmed in the pre-match press conference that had there not been so many games coming up in close succession, he could have played Balbuena. But because there was, he thought, now I'm going to just, there's no point in taking it.
Because Diop at 4.4 would be ideal, mate.
Yeah, of course, man. So you're trying to save money everywhere, I can tell now. Villa 0, Burnley 0.
27 shots from Villa, 17 in the box, but only 7 on target, and only 1 of them was a big chance. Welcome to playing against Burnley, kids. Anwar El Ghazi had 8 attempts, 5 of them from outside the box, and he was the main one.
Free kick.
He was the main one to blame for Villa not winning the game, because there were several. I mean, Jack Grealish was the amount of breakaway counter-attacks that Jack Grealish managed to manufacture against Burnley was unbelievable. It's so underrated that you'd actually be in how often do you see people break and run at Burnley if you just ignore the winner of the Puskas Award for a second here. It doesn't happen much. And Grealish, who played centrally in the game, he was just opening them up in that second half.
Yeah.
Joy to watch Jack Grealish. El Ghazi was the main one who should have won the game for him. That said, I don't think they're better with him in the team. They're better with Grealish on the left still, although this worked for this. I'm going to say it worked for this game. Obviously drew 0-0. Traore didn't impress on the right. And I think Watkins needs better delivery into him, which is ideally Grealish in a wider area rather than a central area. Grealish could never lay it onto Watkins because he's central and Watkins is central. So he's having to go left or right, essentially. And they'd be better, I think, for having Trezeguet on the right because Trezeguet does a really good job for them in terms of work rate. So they're missing players. Look, Douglas Luiz was suspended as well. Concer's got an illness. Ross Barkley's still injured. So not the worst result for Villa. Probably a bit frustrating because they'd have looked at it pre-game and thinking, we've got 3 great fixtures. We've got 2 games in hand on everyone, which admittedly are probably not going to get played for quite a while. But all of a sudden you're looking at it going, well, actually, if they win the 2 games in hand and one today, they're second, despite having some bad home results recently. And there is a theme here. Villa, bad home results. Leicester, bad home results. Manchester United, bad home results. There's a theme here somewhere. I just don't know what it equates to in terms of why some are doing much better away from home and why some others aren't. I suspect a lot of it is to do with how certain teams defend. I think there's a lot to do with it. Yeah. Not the worst day for Villa. Burnley, back-to-back clean sheets. Nick Pope is the only player who's got more FPL points. Heung-min Son is the only player who's got more FPL points than Heung-min Son over the last 5 game weeks. That's despite missing a game, which was obviously the 5-0 defeat at Man City. Yeah. Burnley have, I think it's 4 clean sheets away from home. They've obviously got 4 in 5.
They're now up to 5 in 13. And yeah, Nick Pope goes 9 points, 10 points, missed the game, 3 points, 11. Fantastic.
That's the point. So when he's getting the cleanies, he's just drawn to it, isn't it? Worth saying Martinez 8-pointer here as well because he made 4 saves in the game, although a lot more straightforward than some of Pope's ones. But he just gets his legs and shit in the way of the save from El Ghazi's free kick was a brilliant save. He's reasonable. Charlie Taylor is getting a lot of attention because they've got good fixtures. Sheffield United, West Ham, Arsenal, that's Brighton's fixtures. Wolves, Leeds, Sheffield United, Fulham are a decent next 4. Then they've got the double. Hate the double though. West Ham away, Liverpool away. And then they've got difficult fixtures afterwards. So Burnley is probably an avoid for me unless I decide to play the big money for Pope.
Yeah. Sheffield United 2, Manchester United 3. I'm going to eat some humble pie, James. In that last week, I did think, or after we played United, I didn't think they were good enough to get into the top 4 this season. From an attacking point of view, I think they will score enough goals to outscore enough teams to comfortably get into the top 4 this season.
They win the game now and they're second.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy to take that. Humble pie tastes fine when you look at it and you think about it. That I misjudged their ability, but Rashford, I think Rashford is going to rack up a lot of FPL points in the coming weeks. I think he's looking hungry, fit, finishing well. I think Marcus Rashford's one that I really want to buy.
The next 2 fixtures will potentially particularly appeal for Marcus Rashford in Leeds and Leicester. I think more so than say Wolves, Aston Villa, and then Liverpool afterwards. But yeah, I would consider Marcus Rashford as potential part of the wild card. So I'd look at the double as well. And I think Liverpool away, Fulham away, not the best. Can he get at Fulham? Yes. Who's most likely to hurt Liverpool? It's possibly him. Yeah, it's possibly him.
No. Yeah.
So Marcus Rashford would definitely be under consideration. Yes. They started the game really badly, United, and then obviously equalised through Rashford himself.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, from there the game was really straightforward, and then the end of the game was really nervy for him. It was quite. It wasn't a 3-2 game such. But look,
it's more comfortable for United than the scoreline suggests.
As I said just now, 10 consecutive away league wins for them. If they could sort their home form out, they'd actually be challenging Liverpool. And they've in the 6 games this season away from home, they've won them all, and they've been behind in all of them. And you can say, look, that's failings defensively because they should be keeping clean sheets in some of them games that's gone, by the way. But the ability to recover gives the team great confidence to not panic in situations when they go behind. What would be more interesting is what happens when, say, they go behind to Leicester, for example, in game week 15, if it happens, and Leicester sit in on them and make the game difficult, could become a real problem for them. So do I think United can win the league? No, not particularly. Still too many defensive issues for me personally. But Rashford, Fernandes, of course, decent options. Nice to see Martial smile, got himself a goal. Although Aaron Ramsdale didn't cover himself in any glory. Well done for actually selling him, Suj. The Sheffield United's opening goal, for me, summed up their season in the fact that Oliver Burke, who we've joked about falling over quite a bit, managed to fall over in blocking Dean Henderson's attempted clearance. I must say, and it's not been mentioned, he did remarkably well to make sure the ball didn't touch a finger. He moves his body to make sure it doesn't hit any arm or any... Because listen, if it scraped his finger, the goal would have got disallowed, right? And then he manages to give it there for McGoldrick. The second goal was fluky as fuck, right? Lindelof heads it against McGoldrick. Sheffield United now have the lowest total after 13 games in English top flight history. They've got some good fixtures coming up, but
they were better yesterday. I thought Fleck
be winning them.
Was decent yesterday. I thought Fleck gave them a little bit more energy in the middle of the park. Obviously,
or maybe a little bit fitter now.
Yeah, when you lose, they lost Sander Berge early, right? And then you have to readjust your formation. Basham goes into midfield.
Jagielka on,
yeah,
to play against Rashford's pace and stuff.
Yeah. It didn't seem quite right. But I did think from an attacking point of view, especially Fleck impressed me a little bit more. They were better. And they did seem, you're right, fit is probably the right word to use. They played with a little bit more energy. But still not good because they still come away with no points in a week where Fulham, Brighton, West Brom and Burnley have got a point.
All got something.
And all of these guys are ticking along with ones here and there and the odd win. It's a ticking bomb here with Sheffield United.
Sheffield United's next 5 are Brighton, Everton's at home, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Newcastle. Now, I know 3 of them are away. They need to win at least 3 of them games, in my opinion, or forget it.
That's the games, James. That's the 10 fixtures we've had. We've got 10 great fixtures this weekend as well. Looking forward to Chelsea, West Ham on Monday night. It's going to be a takeaway night, James, and stick the telly on and have a beer. We've been sent a handful of Twitter questions, so we will look at a couple of these because we've got a bit of time, James.
Go on.
FPL Vader. That's not Trent Alexander-Arnold, just so you know.
Friend of the show, play nice.
Why I don't like Trent Alexander-Arnold being Darth Vader is because Darth Vader's a dad, right, who chopped off his son's hand. Trent doesn't even look like he's legally old enough to have sex with someone to be someone's dad. So he can't be the father who comes back later in life. Trent needs to be something else.
The reason, no. It's not a comparison to Darth Vader. The reason I was referring to Trent as Darth Vader is because I felt like the idea of getting him back, all I could hear in the back of my head was like Darth Vader music. That's what it was. Like I need the proper intro for it. What's the question?
Santa Fernandez.
Why?
That's all it says. I don't see any reason why I'd want to sell him in Son. Again, same situation, 1-on-1 on goal. I thought he was going to score. Well, there wasn't even a doubt in my mind that he was going to score. Maybe a little bit more because Alisson's a bloody good goalkeeper, but not much.
The answer to the why is, obviously, if you can do it, it's probably Bruno Fernandes' captaincy. But that was a move for if said before Sheffield United, I'd be more inclined to say, yeah. Listen, you can stick the armband on Sonny. Heung-min Son has 114 FPL points in 13 games. He has double exactly Raheem Sterling's total. I haven't worked out what the percentage more than Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is, but it's even more than that. The guy at the moment, he's running at the rate that he's going to beat Mo Salah's 303 total from 3 years ago. Now, he probably won't continue that rate, but the guy is a phenomenon. if it's short-term thinking and you're thinking, I don't fancy Son against Leicester and Wolves, I'd rather have Bruno against Leeds and Leicester themselves, and it means he's your captain this week, I'd say, yeah, crack on. But if you're on longer-term thinking, may I suggest that you probably keep Sonny at the moment.
Yeah. FPL Sammy says, who's the best 2-week punt to replace Ferran Torres, priced 7.8 million and under?
So I think you're probably coming down, and I would come down quite a bit. So, I mean, Pulisic I can get to. That doesn't quite get to Pulisic.
What you're coming now? 7.9?
First thing I'd advise is, if it's 2-week punt, what do you want in the rest of your team? So one of the things I said earlier is my game week 15 is I'm really set, quite comfortable. If you look at the defensive fixtures I've got Ayling at home to Burnley, Walker-Peters away to Fulham, Ruben Diaz at home to Newcastle, and Trent and Robertson at home to West Brom. I could well play all 5 of them, for example. So I'm very well set. I've got Suj at home to Brighton. I'm really well set for game week 15. So for me, there's 2 things I want to consider. One, am I buying player just for game week 14? And it might be for the person who's asked the question that this works the other way round and they need to think more about 15. Or do I want to seek out the value? Now, the reason I think Neto is probably the best choice, it's a decent fixture on Monday. If they can counter-attack on Tottenham, and I suggest that will probably be a rough watching game week 15, by the way, then he's an interesting proposition and you'll probably eke the value out at the same time. So I think Neto might be the one that I end up leaning towards. I think the Leeds guys are really interesting, particularly if you've got a priority for 15. And I think for 14, you could do worse than Lookman Cavallero, honestly. And if you come that far down with the money, what does that then open you up for a transfer in 15, for example?
A couple more questions here, James. 2.0, Cluso FPL. Would there be tree surgeons mentioned? James's dilemmas yesterday with tree surgeons outside his house. Leads me on to a little segue, though. We're moving offices today. I mean, obviously, people will know if they watch on YouTube that we're remote at the moment, and we have been for quite a while. But regardless where our regular office and studio is, we're moving. So very soon, hopefully, and once we're out of tier 3 again and what have you, in the new year, we'll not have any of the problems of tree surgeons outside your window. Outside my window, you probably can't hear it, but I've got guys with skips.
Can you be absolutely certain of this?
What? That we won't have tree surgeons outside our window? Yes. Yeah. There's no trees in the area. None. And if there are, we'll burn them down. We
have a little thing, and I know a lot of the regular listeners like to hear this sort of shit. So we don't record on Thursday mornings, basically.
Yeah.
One, because the obviously Clash of Correspondence normally goes out, and that's normally pre-recorded. And 2, often we'll do a quiz and we'll pre-record it, so it means there's a day with no recording in the middle, for example. Another reason for that is I've normally got a leaf blower outside my house on a Thursday morning, and he makes a din. So yesterday morning, it's like, there's no leaf blower. This is a bit weird. What's going on? And then he's about 6, 7 of them turn up to start chopping trees instead. I'm like, you've killed my afternoon. Look, they got to do their job. They got to do what they got to do. It just was frustrating for me because I knew, to be honest, it wasn't about the YouTube stream I was bothered about because it wouldn't have mattered. For the audio, it would have been really bad.
Last question of the day, James, goes to Man on FPL podcast, who've sent in 2 questions. We'll take them, 1 each. For you, James, should Spurs send Gareth Bale back to Madrid in January and reinvest the money in someone younger and fitter?
No. Gareth Bale, I hope, is going to obviously win Tottenham the league in March or April when he's finally 100% fit, right? Or more likely, maybe get us a confirmed place in the top 4. Wouldn't send him back. I know he's hardly played, but he's hugely responsible for what's happened to Tottenham because he uplifted everybody. And I think he increased standards of people like Lucas and Bergwijn knew that they had to work hard to keep a place in the team, for example. What I would say is, unless I see something that changes in the next couple of months, I wouldn't be buying him next summer.
No.
You would look for something different. There's no reason that Tottenham would take him back on what we've seen. I think he's still got a role to play in this season, but it might not be for a while. Yeah, he's so far off fitness. I keep saying it.
And a man on an FPL podcast also asked, how's my missus's Instagram book review account going? And I've just opened my phone to have a look. She has 1,000
I
followers.
completely misunderstood that question.
How's my missus's Instagram account, book review account?
Jump the gun there. Yeah, how is your missus? I thought
how's my missus's Instagram book review account going? Is she still getting free books? She certainly is.
Nice.
Cappuccinos _and_ books. Follow her there. You might see insight into something interesting. There'll be no football chat. I'll give you that.
No, there won't be.
Yeah, indeed. That's a wrap, James. We've given everybody a good 75 minutes or so of podcast. You've got lots of other stuff to do in the next 24 hours, but most notably, sort out your FPL teams and make your decisions.
Sell Patreon quickly, and then I'll tell you schedule for next week.
Yes, please. Patreon.com/Planet FPL. And yeah, there's plenty of additional shows we'll be doing over the Christmas break, etc., etc. So do head over there if you want to support the podcast. We do a Patreon exclusive Q&A on a Monday as well, which I'm pretty sure this week is going to be quite chip heavy. What's the schedule for next week, James?
Schedule for next week for the non-Patreon podcast, chip special Monday. We'll look at alternative strategies for people in different circumstances. Tuesday, full game week review of game week 14. Wednesday, Sky coming into a critical period of obviously the Christmas fixtures. Thursday's Clash of Correspondence. Aaron Lagor and Is My Cat playing, previewing Leicester and Manchester United. Particularly important one for those who do have that first wildcard. They both have a double, obviously, in game week 19. And Christmas Day, I'll have something out for you. Bit of Ask James. I don't know how I'm going to make that work yet, but I'll figure out a way.
Good. Yeah, there's plenty of content next week, despite it being Christmas week. But in the meantime, as we know that COVID's on the rise, stay safe wherever you are. Enjoy your Christmas shopping weekends. Do it all online or whatever. And we'll be back at you next week. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck for the game week. Cue music, please, man, child.